Hello there, and welcome back to the News Project Live on GNAT-TV's Facebook page. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director at GNAT-TV's News Project, and it's a pleasure to be with you today on Friday, June 11th. Uh, Another weekend coming up, and hopefully the weather will be just as nice as it's been for the last couple of days, although it looks kind of murky out there right now. We'll see. Anyway, turning to some of the news we've been following, and just wanted to report on to bring you up to speed. As many of you know, we're right on the threshold of getting to the 80% mark in terms of having people vaccinated. That would allow the remaining restrictions on that were introduced as a result of the COVID pandemic to be lifted. As of yesterday, that would be Thursday, June 10th, 79.6 of the eligible Vermonters who are 12 years old and older have received at least one dose of the vaccine, and that left at that point about 2,093 more Vermonters needed to make it to 80%. So it's possible that well, sometime today perhaps, or maybe even already. Certainly, let us hope by the end of the weekend we could cross that 80% threshold, and those 2,000 or so Vermonters get at least that first jab. Anyway, on that note, just wanted to mention that the Southwestern Vermont Healthcare has announced that they will be holding walk-in vaccine clinics every day from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. At their Express Care facility down there at the main hospital in Bennington, and also this weekend, tomorrow, Saturday, June 12th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. excuse me, there'll be a vaccine clinic held at the former Southern Vermont College campus in the gym there where they've been holding them for the past several months. And the big deal with this announcement is that you don't need to have an appointment or pre-register members of the general public, 12 and older. You can just walk on in and get that jab. So it takes about as much of the complexity out of that as anything possibly can. And also both the clinics, the one they'll be holding Saturday at SVC, and then the other walk-in ones on their campus from 8 to 6. They are open to everybody, regardless of whether you live in Vermont or somewhere else. If you are under the age of 18, you must be accompanied by an adult, and that's basically about the only restriction there. By the way, there's also going to be one held this afternoon, I meant to say, at Lake Shasbury, State Park there, from 3 to 5 p.m. So if you're planning to kind of get the weekend off to a good start and head down to the lake, well, you can get your jab there too if you want and need to. Okay, connected to that in a way, I just wanted to make note of the fact that the press conferences that Governor Scott and his leading team of officials who've been working on the COVID-19 pandemic ever since March of 2020. As many of you remember, they used to have 3 press conferences a week. Reduced that down to 2 earlier this year, and more recently, last week I think, cut that down to 1. So there's only one on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock at the moment. And they are looking towards the point where they will probably even cut back that one to basically what Governor Scott used to do, was to hold a press conference with mostly with the reporters who covered the State House regularly, one time a week. Now, those, of course, weren't televised, and they certainly didn't have a Zoom option so that anyone from the public could kind of tune in and watch, or a journalist from, let's say, Southern Vermont could easily ask a question, which is one of the nice things about the press conferences that they were holding. It was kind of open to the entire statewide media. Anyway, so they're still trying to figure out what to do with that, and whether or not those if we go back to the regular format of press conferences, whether or not those will be broadcast live, the major media outlets are still trying to figure that one out as to whether or not, once the state of emergency is lifted and we cross that 80% threshold, uh, is it still something that requires a live telecast? So, be interesting to find out where they land on that one. In VT Digger, by the way, there's an excellent article about this by one of their writers, Kit Norton, who goes through this in some detail, and certainly if you find this sort of thing interesting, it'd be worth a read. Just stay statewide briefly for another moment. Just wanted to mention also that the state legislature will be returning to business in the virtual State House on June 23rd for a veto override session. As you may recall, Governor Scott vetoed a couple of bills towards the end of the session that would have allowed for non-citizen voting in Winooski and Montpelier for local elections, not federal or state elections, just purely local ones. That if you weren't a U.S. citizen yet, you could vote in those. They have large populations of folks there, I guess, who aren't yet U.S. citizens, but are certainly impacted by some of the decisions that come down on the local level. So um, the legislature passed, and then the governor vetoed two bills that would have allowed for non-citizens to vote in those two towns. And so the legislature is going back to work to see if they can override that veto. And they'll be back in session for those vetoes, I should say. They'll be in session on June 23rd and June 24th. There's also the possibility they could also talk about and maybe do some work on other bills. So it'll be worth staying tuned to all that. And related to all that, we'll be hosting a discussion with four of our area legislators next week. We'll be taping that session on Wednesday, and it should be available for viewing shortly afterwards. We're very pleased to have with us Representatives Kathleen James, Seth Mongartz, Dave Durfee, and Kelly Payala will be talking to us about the legislative session that just sort of ended, and also about the veto session that's coming up. Anyway, just to get a little more local to wrap things up, pretty quiet week on the local front, but graduations were kind of part of the story. Burr and Burton had their graduation last Friday, June 4th, and tomorrow, June 12th at 12 noon, Arlington Memorial High School will be holding their graduation as well. So congratulations to all those graduates. GNAT-TV will be airing live the Arlington graduation on our Comcast channel 1094, and also on our website if you want to catch it live there that way. And just to also, while I'm thinking about it, remind you that if you want to see any more details on some of these pieces or topics we've talked about, you can go to the comments section here on this page, and you'll get links or notes on to how you might drill down further into that. So just before we go, I wanted to mention that the state's Department of Public Service has announced the release of the final draft of its 10-year telecommunications plan. As we all know, broadband issues became a very big deal in Vermont, as they did just about everywhere across the country over the past year or so, and a couple months since the pandemic. We all learned a lot about how important that was. And so the Department of Public Service has been studying this issue, how to bring better, faster broadband service to the entire state, not only to those who are currently very underserved or aren't able to access the internet at all, which is apparently about 51,000 people around the state, but how we can improve and bring up to speed, no pun intended, what contemporary standards of broadband are, which the perfect world is 100 megabits upload and 100 megabits per second download. That's very fast. Most of us don't have that, but that's kind of what the gold standard is at the moment. Anyway, that'll have to do it for today. Appreciate you being with us. Hope you found our little update interesting, and I'll see you again next Friday. Take care and have a great weekend.